I mentioned I was an admissions counselor. When you guys hear that term admissions counselor, some schools call them admissions officers. Basically, what our job is, our responsibility is to review applications. So if you've ever, when you're going to be applying to these schools and you're wondering, where's my application going to? Who's going to read my essay? Well, in this case, it would be yours truly. I have the pleasure of reviewing for several different territories, but one of them actually includes Wicomico County. So I'll be working alongside you guys during the application process in terms of if you have any questions about your application status. Maybe you might be missing anything on your application. You're wondering why. I'm the guy you can talk to, or if you have any general questions about Salisbury. And I'm also a Salisbury alum. I'd be more than happy to share my personal experiences with you. I'm not going to go into that tonight because I can spend hours talking about my personal experience. As it relates to tonight, I'm just going to be spending a little bit of time here just talking about the application process, which is a part of the admissions process. If you joined me a couple of weeks ago, I spent some time talking about the overall college admissions process. So what types of things that you should be asking yourself when you're on that college search. First of all, just figuring out what college to apply to, and then went into financial aid a little bit, and then the application. Tonight, I'm just gonna really hone in on the application process. Now, my slides that I'm gonna be showing you tonight are specifically from the perspective of applying to Salisbury University, but I will be throwing in some generalizations that over my past 3 years of working in admissions that I'm aware of that other colleges do. So maybe you're not dead set on coming to Salisbury, but you just want to know a little bit more about the college admissions process. Hopefully what I have to say tonight will benefit you in some way. So this first slide that you can see here, these are our deadlines. Every college has a set of deadlines. Some colleges might even have what's called rolling deadlines, where they're basically taking applications all throughout the year. But in most cases, you'll find that colleges will have set deadlines for their applications. Now, deadlines are usually attached to an application type. You can see here that at Salisbury University, we have 3 different types that you can choose from: early decision, early action, regular decision. Some colleges might have just 2. A priority deadline, I've heard usually it's November 1st is that big deadline. So that's typically when we tend to see a lot of applications, because a lot of students think that we abide by that November 1st deadline. As you can see, we've got a few. And then colleges will also have like a regular deadline that's usually sometime in January. So as it relates to Salisbury, we have 3 different types here. And the one thing to remember is that early decision includes that binding contract. All right, when you hear that term binding, whenever a college says a certain application type is binding, pretty much means if you apply that way and if you are accepted, you're then expected to withdraw from any other college that you applied to, because you're required to attend that university. It sounds a little bit scary, but usually there are benefits to applying that way. For Salisbury, if you apply early decision, you do get the very best consideration on your application. So we know that students that apply early decision, they want to be at Salisbury. It's their #1 school, it's their dream school. And we want to get you here onto campus, and we try to do the best that we can to get you here. And I was able to admit students over the past few years who applied early decision that would not have been accepted had they applied early action or regular decision. So I recommend early decision, especially if you might be a little bit concerned with where you are academically speaking. Maybe your GPA is not so strong, or your test scores aren't the greatest. Early decision really gives you that leg up, so to speak. I forgot to mention this, but admissions counselors are really important in this manner, in that you can always reach out to us if you have specific questions like that. I get that question all the time from students, from parents, what's the benefit of applying early decision outside of just getting your response early? So at Salisbury, you really do get your best shot of being admitted. If you don't want to do that full commitment, our 2 non-binding applications are early action and regular decision. So non-binding means if you apply that way and you are accepted, you just have the option to commit. The national deposit deadline isn't until May 1st, so you have plenty of time to think about it and visit colleges, figure out which one's the best fit for you, and then commit. My general rule of thumb is the earlier you do things, the smoother the process is going to be. And as it relates to the application process specifically, the earlier you apply, in terms of Salisbury, it's not as competitive as if you were to wait later on.
Ah,
So I recommend at least
yeah.
early action. If you don't want to do early decision, definitely do early action. And you can see that deadline is December 1st. So each have the deadline there, November 15th, December 1st, January 15th. Some colleges are extremely strict with their deadlines, meaning you have to have all your documents in by the time that you apply. At Salisbury, we just want to make sure that you have at least your online application submitted by the deadline date, and then we'll consider you as an early decision applicant, an early action applicant. Even if you don't have all your supporting documents in, we'll consider you as an early action applicant, and then you can always send in your transcript, your test scores after the fact, and we'll try to get, we'll get that decision out to you before our notification deadlines. So notification there, you can see for early decision, we get back to you no later than December 15th. For early action, if you apply that way, we'll get back to you no later than January 15th. And then for a regular decision, if you apply that way, that deadline is not till January 15th, but we won't get back to you with a decision until March 15th at the latest. All right, so keep that in mind. Some colleges might be more strict with their deadlines, and also some colleges are strict with scholarship. To be evaluated for scholarships, you might have to apply by a certain date. At SU, for merit scholarships, you can apply as late as regular decision and still be evaluated for merit scholarships. But I have heard at other colleges, by their November 1st date, if you haven't applied yet, then you won't be considered for any of those maybe first round scholarships. So again, the earlier you get on the ball, the better it is for you. All right, we are a member of the Common App. And the other way to apply is through our Salisbury University application that you can find on our website. And if you just visit salisbury.edu, there's a big button that says Become a Student. And then you can apply as a freshman or a transfer student, international student. So there's different links there that it takes you to. So if you're not familiar with the Common App, most of you have probably heard of that before. Makes it really simple, especially if you're applying to multiple colleges. If you are applying to more than one college, I would recommend the Common App just because it'll save you some time. You just fill out the Common App one time, and then you can add your colleges and then send it all off. That saves you a lot of time there. But if you're just applying to Salisbury, I recommend the Salisbury University application just because it's not going to take you as long to complete as it would the Common App. There's only certain questions on our Salisbury University application that we want to know about your academic history or biographical information. But the Common App has extensive questions that they're asking you. So now, what are we going to need from you as an applicant in order to be reviewed? Well, there's a few things here. We are going to ask for your high school transcript. In most cases, your high school should have it set up automatically to send over. We will actually accept your transcript electronically via email. If it's a PDF copy, we'll take it right from your school. We can't take it right from you as a student. So that's another thing. Some colleges might be able to accept your test scores that way. Some might be more strict that it has to be the official, physical copy right from your high school's registrar office, or through another electronic method. Test scores, we are test optional here at SU. We've always been test optional with a caveat of a 3.5 weighted cumulative GPA. We have since waived that GPA requirement since COVID. So this past year's applicants were completely test optional. No matter what your GPA is, you don't have to send your test scores in. And then similar to fall 2022, we are also test optional without a GPA requirement. So if you haven't yet taken the SAT, or maybe you're just not happy with your test scores, you can still apply and be considered complete and receive a decision. And moving backwards, I forgot to mention for high school transcript, most colleges will be looking at your weighted cumulative GPA. I haven't really heard of a college that looks at the unweighted, which is nice because typically your weighted GPA is going to be higher than your unweighted, because we're taking into account your AP courses, your honors courses, giving extra weight to that. Dual enrollment also plays a part. And speaking of dual enrollment, you don't have to send in your college transcripts in order to receive a decision. Although we do like to see that, we'll include that into your cumulative GPA. We'll give you essentially extra points for that. but that's not required of you to send in that college transcript. It'll save you a bit of money there in the front end. And then on your application itself, we're gonna be looking at your involvement. So clubs, sports, activities, leadership, volunteer efforts, community efforts. You can put all of that on your application. You have the option actually just to leave that portion blank and then still submit your application, but I would not recommend that. It never looks good to leave that portion blank. So try to put the things that you've done in school right into your application. We want to know what you've been up to. And then, of course, you got the personal essay, which Miss Bailey from Johns Hopkins will be spending a good amount of time on how to write a great essay. We don't have any supplemental essays at Salisbury. You'll find some colleges might have additional essays. So they might have the personal statement essay and then some other supplemental essays or other questions that they're asking you, and they want some written response from you. We don't have anything outside of that, just one personal essay requirement. And then we ask for at least one letter of recommendation. 1 to 3 is good. That can come from a teacher, counselor, coach, manager, pastor, even really anyone but mom or dad works just fine. If you do it through Common App, you can actually set up your recommenders there. It'll send them an email notification saying, hey, this student wants you to be a recommender, and they can accept or decline it. And then they can send that letter electronically through Common App, or as always, it can be emailed to our admissions office. And again, that's another thing if colleges are willing to accept documents like that via email. All right. Okay. Try to move a little bit quicker here. And then this is a picture of our admissions portal. So if you apply to Salisbury, we have what's called an admission status portal. You'll have a login. This is where you're going to be able to monitor your application status. You can see if you're missing anything. So in this case, for this student, you can see they're missing a transcript over from Stephen Decatur. So this student won't receive a decision. They won't be reviewed until we receive that transcript. So let's say you applied, you meant to apply test optional, but you didn't. On your status portal, it's going to tell you, hey, we need your test scores. And then if you say to yourself, well, I meant to apply test optional, that's something that we can fix on our end. You just let us know, we can change you over and we'll waive that requirement. So this is it's a really good, it's basically your home base here for checking on your application status. And this is also where we send our decisions as well. Not every college might have that, but it's a really useful tool to kind of keep track of where you're at. And then I just wanted to mention real quick that you can always transfer to Salisbury. So if you graduate from high school, you end up going somewhere else for a year, you can always apply as a transfer student to come to Salisbury. And it's pretty cut and dry. All you need is 24 transferable credits and a 2.0 transfer GPA, and you're golden. As a freshman, there's all those components that I just talked about: high school transcript, essay, test scores. If you're not applying test optional, letters of recommendation. We don't need any of that as a transfer student. As long as you meet the 24 transferable credit requirement and the 2.0 transfer GPA, you are good to go. Good academic community standing basically means you don't have any holds on your account or anything like that from a previous institution. So it's always worth looking into, what are the transfer requirements for a specific college? Maybe you didn't get into that college as a freshman, so you spend some time at a different institution, or maybe Warwick, knock out some courses, your gen eds that first year, and take that time to figure out what the transfer requirements might be for a university, because oftentimes the transfer requirements aren't as stringent or as competitive as it would be back when you applied as a freshman. All right, I'm pretty short on time here, but I can see in the chat a couple things. Any questions for me before I hand off the baton? Also, I'm going to put my email address right into the chat so you guys have my contact. Seriously, if you want to be at Salisbury, send me an email. Try to work with you as best as I can, advise you in the best that I can as well. Love to get to know you. All right. Would not including your test scores decrease your odds? Great question. So if you don't send your test scores in, we are going to be putting more emphasis on your GPA. So your weighted cumulative GPA, your coursework, and then those other pieces, components on your application itself. Typically, students that we admit, so speaking on Salisbury's behalf, we typically admit students between 3.0 to 4.0 weighted cumulative GPA. Our average was about a 3.7, and our average SAT is about a 1200, but don't let those numbers scare you. Again, we have ranges there. Those aren't requirements, but 3.0 and up is good. And 1100 up on the SAT is also competitive. But we also have a tool called the net price calculator on our website. You can actually plug in your GPA, you can plug in your test scores, and that will actually give you a good estimate as to what you could receive in terms of merit scholarships. But you can always apply test optional and then send your scores in later. So let's say you have an SAT date scheduled for late November or even early December, but you want to apply now. You can absolutely apply right now with what you have, and then you can always send your test scores later on after the fact. Great question though. I think I'm out of time. If you have any other specific questions about the application process, feel free to shoot me an email, guys. I just dropped it there in the chat. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me. And I hope to get to know you guys throughout the process. Thank you.